Hello and welcome back to another line writer tutorial. So today I'm going to show you what else you can do with flings. In the previous tutorial you saw how to make a basic fling with a kind of a running start. So the first thing I'm going to do is get rid of this and show you how to make one from a dead stop. So the first thing you're going to want to do is tab forward one frame. In this example I think we will do a hand fling, just for the sake of it. So begin as you would with a normal fling, except this time only go forward one frame. What we're going to do is make a fling. What we're actually doing here is we're going to make two flings that run concurrently. So your normal fling would run every other frame. This one's going to have two flings. So in the gaps between, in the frames between, we will also have another fling, if that makes sense. So grab these 2 points. I'm just going to disable line snap because it's going to intensely annoy me. Okay. So grab both, stretch them that way as far as you can. And yeah, hopefully you're grabbing as many iterations as possible. And then continue the first frame as you normally, the first fling, sorry, as you normally would. Let's just make this a little bit longer to capture all those iterations. You see there, it suddenly jumps up. That means I'm grabbing more of them. That's obviously too high. Okay. So now we're continuing the second fling in the other frame. Let's try and drag, there we go, this forwards as much as possible. Go. Make sure you're grabbing all the iterations and both contact points each frame. Now you can see as the speed increases, this starts to level out a bit. And obviously there's more than one way of starting a fling from a dead stop, but this is just one. You see here we're having a lot of issues where we're obviously impacting previous frames, so I'm just going to take the easy option and just do a slightly weaker pull here. And in this frame I'm just going to shorten that line enough that that will live. And I'm just going to grab these and pull that up. And yeah, this is just a question of rinsing and repeating. So let's get a bit of speed up. Okay, yeah. Now, I'm not super clued up on technical terminology when it comes to line writer, but I believe this is called an alt fling. Though I'm sure someone will correct me in the comments. Either way, it really doesn't matter. You're running two flings concurrently. So now I'm going to show you another example of something you can do. So you can also have, maybe that's not a, let's try and make this easier on me. Alright, so you can also have, if you want, two flings at the same time. if you wanted to, you could have the feet and also this contact point at the same time, and in between that you could have the hands and let's just grab this one, I guess, back nose peg. And these combinations are endless, man. It's just as many, really as much as you can think of, you can kind of do pretty much. So what was it? It was feet and bottom nose peg. There we go. So yeah, that's another possible combination you could do. Probably pull that a bit higher. Yep. Okay, so now I'm going to show you something else. As well as being able to, I'll probably do it with this point, as well as being able to create multiple different ones with the same kind of angle. Sorry, as well as being able to create flings with multiple contact points at the same time, you can also stack a fling. So let's just start this one off. There we go. You'll notice that, as an aside here, this will start to die as the feet aren't close enough. But here's another example of a pretty good double contact point fling, because that is now much closer to this, which allows me to pull this even higher. And then, depending on the contact point you're doing, you can also do this, where you can just stack this and move it even higher again. And it'll probably allow me to pull that a tiny bit more. Yep. As well as, yep, if I pull that to here. Yeah. So yeah, that's a pretty extreme example. I mean, in some of the tracks I've made, you can make incredibly strong ones. I think of a good example would probably be Cranajam. Let's load that up. Okay, so here's an example of a pretty extreme fling. So we have an alternating nose and bottom nose peg stacked fling here. And you can get a lot of power out of something like this. As you can see, the PPF is rapidly climbing. And some of these you end up working iterationally to get this to survive. So yeah, that's one example. If I go scrub through the track a little bit, just bear with me. I saw something I should show. Where was it? Ah, yes. So this is what we call a granule, which is basically, you know, combining a fling and a manual. So that's another example of the kind of wackiness that you can make. See here, you can just kind of throw them around the curves in a ludicrous way. So this is the other part that I wish to show. This is again a similar kind of fling where it's being stacked, but the difference here is that I'm actually using red lines and multipliers to be able to survive every frame, because the amount of contact point stretch becomes so strong. If I go forwards to this frame, you can see everything's together, but if I remove these, you see how far these contact points diverge from each other because of the strength of these flings. So what I essentially am doing is just grabbing all of those contact points in physics iteration. Which iteration is this being grabbed in? Yeah, in the final iteration actually, and just putting them back together so I can grab them again. And you can create some pretty wild flings doing this. You can also do this just using blue lines, but I mean, this is probably a simpler method. And you know, at this point it's debatable whether you're kind of almost making 10-point cannons rather than an actual fling, but then some of the strongest flings that I've seen basically stack every contact point, and you could almost argue that they basically are 10-point cannons at that point as well. But yes, that's some examples of the kinds of interesting flings you can make. And yeah, for information on how to deal with those kinds of 6th iteration techniques, there is a 6th iteration technique tutorial available, so be sure to check that out. One other thing I wanted to point out with some of these super strong flings, so in the basic fling tutorial, one of the things I showed you how to do was to deal with this situation where you've survived the frame but he will die in the next. But what you can do instead in this example here is with the alternating fling, these are 2 concurrent flings, the nose and the bottom peg, is basically to just continue it, and you'll find that it lives. And the reason for that is because this contact point has been pulled so far by the strength of the fling, as you can see there in the momentum tick, but throughout the frame you're pulling Bosch back together again, so you're going to make him live no matter what, so you shouldn't really have anything to worry about. And that's one of the other advantages of using these concurrent flings, is that he's not exactly indestructible, but like, you're basically putting him back together each frame when they get this strong. Okay, so that's probably going to conclude this tutorial. A lot of these higher level techniques, especially with the flings, can become intermingled, so feel free to check out some of the other tutorial techniques to give yourself more ideas and just a general better understanding. Alright, hope that helped. Bye. Cheers.